The night everything fell apart didn't feel dramatic. It felt ordinary. And that was what made it cruel. The city was quiet. The kind of quiet that convinces you nothing important is about to happen. Streetlights reflected on wet asphalt. A few late cars passed without urgency. Somewhere, a siren echoed far enough away to feel irrelevant. He had just finished his shift. Tired, hungry, thinking only about getting home. The man was not rich. He was not powerful. He was invisible, which in many ways was his greatest crime. The arrest came fast. Too fast. Police cars stopped beside him before he even understood what was happening. Hands were forced behind his back. Cold metal closed around his wrists. Voices shouted instructions he barely had time to process. "What did I do?" he asked. No one answered. At the station, they told him he was being questioned about a murder. A murder he had never heard of. They showed him photos. A man lying dead inside a luxury apartment. Blood on marble floors. Broken glass. A crime scene that screamed money and power. He shook his head. "I've never been there," he said. "I don't know him." They didn't argue. They didn't need to. They already had a story. His fingerprints were found on a door handle. A witness claimed to have seen someone matching his description near the building. A timeline was created. Clean, convenient, devastating. He asked for a lawyer. They told him one would be appointed, eventually. What he didn't know yet was that the apartment belonged to a man connected to a billionaire. A man whose death was inconvenient. A man whose killer needed to be found quickly. And somewhere far above the noise of the interrogation room, someone very powerful had already decided that the truth was optional. The trial was a performance from the beginning. The prosecutor spoke confidently, laying out the case with practiced precision. "This is a simple matter," she said. "The defendant was in the wrong place at the wrong time." The jury listened. They always listened. His lawyer was young, inexperienced, overworked. He tried. But trying is not the same as fighting. When the defendant spoke, his voice trembled, not because he was lying, but because he had never imagined standing there. Never imagined his life could be reduced to a few selective facts. He explained his routine, his job, his route home, small details that made up his existence. None of it mattered. The prosecutor introduced the witness, a man who glanced at him briefly before pointing. "That's him," the witness said. "I'm sure." Sure. That word sealed everything. The defendant's sister sat in the back of the courtroom, hands clenched, heart racing. She shook her head in disbelief. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered to anyone who would listen. No one did. The billionaire did not attend the trial. He didn't need to. His presence was felt without him ever stepping inside. The verdict came quickly, too quickly. Guilty. The word echoed, final, unforgiving. The sentence followed. 12 years. The defendant didn't react, didn't shout, didn't collapse. He simply stood there, as if his body refused to accept what his ears had heard. As they led him away, he turned one last time toward the courtroom, toward the life he had known, toward his sister. "I didn't do this," he said quietly. She nodded through tears. "I know," she replied. "But knowing the truth and proving it are two very different things." That night, as the cell door closed behind him, he finally understood something that would haunt him for years. Justice wasn't blind. It was selective. And somewhere, far from the prison walls, a billionaire watched the news in silence. He saw the headline. He recognized the name. He knew who the real killer was. And he chose to say nothing. Because sometimes, silence is not ignorance. It is strategy. Prison does not begin at the gate. It begins when time stops meaning what it used to. The first night was the hardest. Not because of fear, but because of silence. The cell was small. Concrete walls, a thin mattress, a narrow window that let in just enough light to remind him of everything he no longer had. He sat on the edge of the bed for hours, still wearing the same clothes from court, the same shoes, the same life, frozen in a moment that no longer belonged to him. He replayed the trial again and again. Every question, every answer, every moment he thought honesty would save him. It didn't. The first weeks blurred together. New rules, new faces, new dangers. In prison, innocence is not protection. It is weakness. He learned quickly to keep his head down, to speak only when necessary, to never look afraid when he was. Some inmates mocked him. "You don't look like you belong here," one said. He didn't answer. Others tested him. Small confrontations, stolen items, quiet threats. He endured, not because he was strong, but because he had no alternative. Letters from his sister came every month, always handwritten, always hopeful. "I'm still trying," she wrote. "Someone has to listen eventually." He read those letters until the paper softened, until the words almost disappeared. He wrote back at first, explaining, detailing inconsistencies, naming witnesses who had lied. After a year, he stopped, not because he gave up, but because explaining the truth to a system that didn't want it felt like bleeding into the ocean. Outside, the world moved on. The billionaire's name appeared in magazines, headlines, philanthropy features, awards. Inside, the man's name faded. He became a number, a routine, a body occupying space. Time in prison is not measured in days. It's measured in losses. He missed funerals, missed birthdays, missed the quiet milestones that make a life feel real. He watched younger inmates arrive angry and leave hardened. Watched older ones arrive broken and leave not at all. Sometimes, late at night, he imagined walking free. Not rich, not celebrated, just free. But imagination is dangerous in places like that. It reminds you of what you can't touch. The guards treated him like furniture. Present, replaceable, unremarkable. One afternoon, a fight broke out in the yard. He wasn't involved. Didn't matter. Everyone went down. A boot pressed against his back. Concrete scraped his cheek. In that moment, something inside him shifted. Not rage, not despair, acceptance. He realized the system didn't need him to be guilty. It only needed him to stay quiet. Years passed, 5, 7, 9. His sister grew older, more tired. Her letters changed. Less optimism, more exhaustion. "I'm not giving up," she wrote once, "but I'm running out of doors to knock on." He read that letter slowly, folded it carefully, and placed it under his mattress. Meanwhile, the billionaire aged gracefully. His hair grayed. His influence grew. He funded institutions, sat on boards, spoke about justice at conferences. He never spoke the prisoner's name. At night, though, the billionaire sometimes sat alone in his study, staring at a locked drawer. Documents, proof, a truth that could free a man. He never opened it, not yet, because the truth to him was not a moral obligation. It was a strategic asset. Back in prison, the man marked his 12th year. No celebration, no announcement, just another morning. He stood at the mirror, older, thinner, eyes harder. He whispered something he hadn't said in years. "I didn't do this." He didn't expect anyone to hear. But somewhere far away, death was approaching a man who had always believed he controlled timing. And with it, a decision that could no longer be delayed. Because silence only works until it runs out of time. The billionaire died quietly. No scandal, no sudden collapse in public, no dramatic final words. The news broke early in the morning. Markets reacted before people did. Shares dipped. Analysts speculated. Commentators praised his legacy. A visionary, a builder, a man who shaped industries. No one mentioned the man sitting in a concrete cell, folding his blanket with mechanical precision, unaware that the clock had finally begun to move. The funeral was private, selective. Powerful people gathered, dressed in dark suits and practiced expressions. They spoke about discipline, about foresight, about control. No one spoke about mercy. The reading of the will took place days later in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. Lawyers sat with tablets open. Executors reviewed documents. Security waited outside. The atmosphere was calm, confidence-filled. They had done this many times before, until they reached the final section. The lead attorney cleared his throat. "There is an addendum," he said. That word shifted the room. "This document is to be opened only after confirmation of my death," he continued, reading aloud. A sealed envelope was placed on the table. Old-fashioned, handwritten label. "To be delivered to the office of the district attorney," the attorney read. Murmurs followed. "Why the DA?" The attorney opened the envelope, removed a single letter, then paused. "This letter," he said slowly, "contains a personal statement from the deceased, as well as supporting documentation." He began to read. "For 12 years, a man has served time for a crime he did not commit." Did. The room went silent. I chose silence while I was alive. Not because I lacked proof, but because the truth at the time would have been inconvenient. Executives exchanged glances. Attorneys shifted in their seats. This letter exists because death removes leverage, and without leverage, the truth is finally free. The attorney stopped reading, looked up, his face pale. "There are names," he said quietly. "Dates, transactions, evidence." The district attorney received the letter that afternoon. So did the press. Phones started ringing immediately. At the prison, the man learned about the billionaire's death from a guard. "Big guy died," the guard said casually. "Guess even gods bleed." The man didn't respond. He had long stopped reacting to the outside world. 2 days later, a different guard stopped at his cell. Not hostile, not bored, uneasy. "Pack your things," the guard said. The man looked up. "Why?" "You've got a meeting," the guard replied. The interrogation room felt different this time. Cleaner, brighter. 2 lawyers waited. One public defender, one unfamiliar. "We need to ask you some questions," the unfamiliar one said. "For once," the man replied quietly. "So do I." They slid the letter across the table. He read it slowly. Hands steady, eyes sharp. When he finished, he looked up. Not relieved, not angry, just tired. "So he knew," he said. "Yes," the lawyer replied. "He knew everything." "And waited," the man said. "Yes." Outside, institutions scrambled. Cases were reopened. Statements were revised. Press releases softened language. The prosecutor, who had built her career on the conviction, sat in her office, staring at the wall. She remembered the inconsistencies, the speed, the pressure. She remembered choosing efficiency over doubt. Now, doubt had teeth. The real perpetrator's name surfaced. Someone protected, someone connected, someone who had benefited from the billionaire's silence. Arrests followed. Quiet ones. No cameras, no speeches. Preferred to correct itself quietly. Inside the prison, word spread. "Someone important spoke for you," an inmate said. The man didn't smile, didn't celebrate. Freedom approached slowly, like an animal you don't trust yet. Because 12 years teaches you something brutal. Even justice can hesitate. The letter had done what no appeal ever could. It forced truth into a space where silence had reigned. But as the doors began to open, one question remained unanswered. Why had the billionaire waited? And would freedom, after 12 stolen years, be enough? Freedom did not arrive with applause. There were no cameras waiting, no dramatic speeches, no cheering crowd. Just a metal door opening slowly. The man stood still when it happened. For 12 years, every movement had been controlled, every step predicted, every choice limited. Now, suddenly, no one was telling him where to stand. "You're free," the guard said. Free. The word felt unfamiliar, almost dangerous. He stepped outside. The air felt heavier than he remembered. Not cleaner, not lighter, heavier. His sister was waiting across the street. Older, thinner, tired in a way sleep could never fix. She didn't run, didn't scream. She just stood there, hands shaking, eyes locked on him as if afraid he might disappear again. They hugged for a long time. Neither spoke. Some losses are too large for. Reporters appeared later. Questions followed. Do you forgive the system? Do you feel vindicated? Do you blame the billionaire? He didn't answer. He walked away. That night he slept on a mattress that didn't smell like disinfectant. But he didn't sleep well. Freedom brings noise. Too much light, too many choices, too many reminders of time. He woke up early and sat by the window, watching people rush to jobs they complained about, lives they didn't realize were privileges. Later that day, he was called to a meeting, not with the media, with the attorneys handling the billionaire's estate. The office was immaculate, cold, controlled, just like the man who once ruled it. A senior lawyer spoke carefully. As part of the posthumous disclosure, he said, "There are matters you should understand." Listened. Patient. Prepared. They explained the documents, the evidence, the reason the letter had been written but never sent earlier. The billionaire feared that if the truth came out while he was alive, the lawyer said, the consequences would be unpredictable. For whom? The man asked. The lawyer hesitated. For everyone, he replied. That was the first lie told in that room. The truth was simpler. The billionaire had waited because the truth would have cost him something while he was alive. Influence, alliances, control. In death, those costs disappeared. The man left the meeting with no inheritance, no compensation, no apology that felt complete, just truth. Days passed, then weeks. The system issued statements, words like regrettable, unfortunate, procedural. Failure. None mentioned 12 birthdays lost. 12 years erased. HR, the prosecutor, resigned quietly. No charges, no trial. HR, the real killer, served time, but not 12 years. HR, the imbalance remained. HR, one afternoon, the man visited the billionaire's grave. Not out of anger, not out of gratitude, out of curiosity. He stood there for a long time, then spoke. You saved me, he said softly, and you destroyed me. He understood now. The billionaire had not been a hero, nor a villain. He had been something worse. Comfortable. Comfortable enough to wait. That night, the man made a decision. Not for revenge, for meaning. He refused interviews, declined book deals, ignored offers to become a symbol. HR. Instead, he filed a civil suit. Not for money. Records. HR. Names were documented. Processes exposed. Systems mapped. HR. He didn't want punishment. He wanted memory. Years later, he stood in a small room speaking to young men recently released from prison. Men with haunted eyes. Men who still believed freedom would fix everything. It doesn't, he told them honestly, but it gives you a chance to decide who you are next. Some listened. Some didn't. That was okay. The billionaire's name faded slowly. Buildings renamed. Foundations dissolved. Legacy softened into ambiguity. HR, but the letter remained, studied, referenced, remembered. Because it proved something uncomfortable. That justice delayed is not justice denied. It is justice reshaped to protect the powerful. The man never reclaimed what he lost. No one ever could. But he reclaimed something else. Ownership of his story. And that finally was something no one could take from him. He walked free because a powerful man finally spoke. But the real sentence had already been served by everyone who chose silence.